Imagine a new kind of investing, a potentially life-changing way to invest that honors biblical principles, the kind of principles that you and I grew up with. Since 1994, Timothy Plan has made biblically responsible investing possible, offering mutual funds and ETFs that are filtered for biblical principles. Don't compromise your values. Invest with Timothy Plan. Ask your financial advisor or call Timothy Plan at 1-800-TIM-PLAN. Again, that's 1-800-846-7526 and discover what it means to be a biblically responsible investor. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objective, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Read carefully before investing. Mutual funds distributed by Timothy Partners Ltd. and ETFs distributed by Foresight Fund Services LLC. As a paid testimonial, there is no guarantee of future performance and each experience will differ. Well, hello, welcome to another edition of the MemoPod, and I know that this is strange. I need you to understand that I know that this is strange. This is a premature, like, what do they call it? Like when theme parks or businesses or whatever, when they kind of open before they're really ready to open, what do they call it? Soft. It's a soft opening. That's kind of what this is here. Soft opening for the newly renovated Heck Corner is what we're going to call it. And I'm going to give you all a tour, those of you who are paid subscribers, all a tour of everything that we've done, but this is not ready to go yet. There were circumstances that happened this week in my life that have caused this to have to be filmed here and recorded here at home. Namely, my wife got sick, and when Jenny is sick, everything's thrown off because she largely does pretty much everything. And I say that, I'm not serious. I do help out, but certainly it is a partnership, and when she's out, I don't have a lot of extra time. And so because of that, I wasn't able to stay in my location there at the school to record. And so now I'm back here, and this wasn't ready to go yet. Like, it is very primitive. I've got the desk established. I've got the corner. I've got a few things behind me, but none of the lighting is here. None of the acoustic pads are here. None of the silent cone of silence stuff here, because this is actually in a bay, one of the bays in our garage. And so many of you know the sad demise of the Heck Hole. The Heck Hole is no more. Dropped a pretty penny on building that thing just perfectly the way that I always wanted it, to this tropical rainforest that I could escape from the world and go out there and just be. And then we moved, and we tried to bring it with us, but it just wasn't possible because of HOA requirements, and also just the way the neighborhood's set up. Couldn't get the thing back there into the backyard, and so consequently we had to go to Plan B, which was kind of cool, to construct something new. I was able to sell the Heck Hole, and unfortunately the person that bought it didn't want all of the extra stuff. I can't figure that. I don't know why. To me it was dynamite, but they wanted me to gut the whole thing. So I got a lot of the remnants of the Heck Hole upstairs in the attic. But so anyway, what I'm trying to get at is this is very primitive. I'm sitting here in a white t-shirt with a white background and a couple signs, and I'm sitting on a couch, and I look like I'm slumped over in the couch. But we'll get there. I've actually wounded myself in the process of preparing this. I lost a lot of blood. I've even lost full range of motion in my index finger here. But those of you that aren't watching, you can't possibly picture the wound that I am demonstrating for everyone here watching. But anyway, so because of that, I'm just saying this is going to improve. Now, here's the thing. It's probably not going to improve before next week. And here's why. Because next week, I'm gone all week with my family, but I'm not going to leave you hanging. I've got enough stuff that I want to talk about on the MemoPod this week that I'm going to have stuff left over that I will then talk about on the MemoPod next week. So I'm just issuing my standard whenever I do this, whenever I pre-record a week early to be able to have something when I'm gone on vacation or I'm gone with the family or I'm going on a speaking trip, if I ever pre-record early, I always have to give the caveat. I always have to say, if something big happens, like if China invades Taiwan, or if the Russians drop nukes on Ukraine, or if, God forbid, some leading American politician suffers some sort of tragedy, I am not going to be covering it on next week's MemoPod. If that happens in the next 7 days, I'm not going to be covering it because this is all going to be pre-recorded. But because of that, that means I'm going to be back here for that one. I will not be wearing the same thing because I'm not going to record it the same day. However, it will be here in probably the more primitive look of all of this. But I'm telling you, the wheels are in motion. The lighting will be here. The sound equipment and acoustic pads will be installed. The lighting behind me, so it's not as drab and dreary and weird back there, that will be there. So it's all, wheels are in motion. Wheels are in motion, and we will get there. Okay, so I wanted to start with this on the MemoPod this week. For those of you who are paid subscribers, I've got a couple things that I want to get into specifically in the second half. Some stuff on Tucker Carlson, and I know that some of you are big fans of Tucker Carlson, and some of you, like me, have very much appreciated a lot of what Tucker Carlson and I go way back, and so I've got some thoughts that I want to share with you on Tucker and what is going on with Tucker, but that's going to be a conversation I'm going to have with the paid subscribers in the second half, because I got some concerns, and I want to discuss those with all of you. So that's what comes up in the second half. I want to start off this portion, the free portion of the MemoPod this week, by simply issuing a big thank you. I feel like I have not done this to this point, and I need to. I have always felt this great deal of gratitude to a rocker, kind of a folk rocker by the name of Neil Young. I don't know if you know who Neil Young is. Some of his hits, some of you might know, but you may not know. Depending on your age, you may not know Neil Young. I don't want to issue him a thank you because his music has inspired me. It never did. I would not be among those that would be a Neil Young fan. On my playlist, you're not going to find Neil Young. So why am I issuing him a thank you? Why do I feel a debt of gratitude? Because it was his insolence, his hatred of the American South, specifically the state of Alabama, that provided inspiration for one of the greatest classic rock songs of all time. Some of you know that I announce, like the PA announce, the home basketball and football games for the high school where I teach. And because of that, because we're a smaller high school and so we don't have a full staff to do all these various tasks and responsibilities, and the fact that it is high school and not college or pro, I am oftentimes tasked with, when the band isn't there, when the marching band isn't there for the football, or the pep band isn't there for the basketball, that I got to keep the crowd lively with some music. So I got a playlist on my phone that I'll pull songs out. And I guarantee you, if I ever play Lynyrd Skynyrd's hit song Sweet Home Alabama, I mean, all it takes is just the beginning riff of that. You know that. And it sounds just like that. All it takes is that. Crowd of both sides, home and away, they're on their feet. Everybody knows the song, everybody sings it. It's a classic. People love Sweet Home Alabama, as they should. There is a line in Sweet Home Alabama that I'm sure you all know because you all sing it, because you all know it, because it's a classic. But there is that line in there that's an homage to Young's role in this song. You remember the line? I hope Neil Young will remember. Oh, before that, it says, I heard old Neil put her down. I hope Neil Young will remember a Southern man don't need him around anyhow. You know that line. So that's what I'm saying. He was the inspiration for this great song, and I don't think I've ever properly thanked him because I love the song Sweet Home Alabama. which I'm sure somebody at some progressive site has already gone into great detail about how the song is troublesome, how it is probably dripping in racism, and anybody who knows it or sings it, they themselves are in fact racists. Here's the deal, I'm not, so whatever. I like the song. Anyway, some of you may not know that Neil Young actually apologized for his treatment of his countrymen from Alabama. He wrote a biography in 2012, or it was written for him. It was called Waging Heavy Peace, which is what all of the left-wing rockers think that they're doing. They're all about peace and love and all that stuff. But he wrote in that biography these words. He said, Alabama, meaning the song, Sweet Home Alabama, richly deserved the shot Lynyrd Skynyrd gave me with their great record. And he goes on, makes this apology and all of that. It was a nice gesture. But here's what I've realized. Neil Young apparently didn't learn his lesson about political engagement. I may have known this at the time. I certainly know about it now. The website that I write for, Not the Bee, they actually reported on this back in 2022. Because Neil Young overplayed his hand dramatically. And it came back to bite him big time. Just like it did with Sweet Home Alabama. So some of you may remember this. But back in early 2022, like January of 2022, Neil Young made this desperate play to get his name in the headlines. And by the way, to be fair, that's what a lot of fading rockers who are desirous of influence do. Okay, it's what you do. You take some profound stand that will earn you some immediate, even if it's fleeting, it's a surge of attention. Try to pump up your sales. You're fading from the scene, and so you do something like this that you know is going to get fawning media attention, and that's what Young does. He takes a hardline stance in early 2022 in favor of the COVID vaccine, and he gets really angry at platforms and places that are spreading COVID misinformation. Right. Specifically, Neil Young got really, really, really upset that the country's most listened to podcast, which is called the Joe Rogan Experience, that it was spouting so much COVID misinformation. And so upset was Young that he demanded, and I kind of feel like I remember this, or maybe I'm just imagining that I remember this, but some of you may. He demanded that the streaming music giant Spotify, several of you have Spotify, that they end their partnership with Rogan. Okay, Rogan is the most listened to podcast in the country. Do you think Neil Young has the gravitas? Do you think Neil Young has the following? Do you think Neil Young has the downloads? And I know some of you may be Neil Young fans, which I am not. But do you think he has the influence to be able to pull that off? No. Not even close. But Spotify doesn't comply, of course. And so Neil Young issues this ultimatum. That's the only word that you can come up with for it. He issues an ultimatum. Spotify can have either Neil Young or Joe Rogan, but not both. What do you suppose Spotify said? Any guesses? January 26th. I believe that if I've got the date right, I believe that Young's ultimatum came out on January 22nd. You can have Rogan or you can have me. And Spotify on January 26th removed all of Neil Young's songs from their platform. Now, I should say that the move was, I'm sure, a short-term boon for Young. Because was the pro-COVID media with Joe Rogan at the time? No, they wanted him silenced also. They're jealous of him. And so all of the legacy media, what Rush Limbaugh once called the drive-by media, the pro-COVID media touted the courage of Neil Young. Now, had it been somebody like Taylor Swift, had it been somebody like Drake, somebody that has a huge following, somebody who is extraordinarily popular right now. Maybe their exodus from Spotify would have sparked some kind of movement, would have had some kind of impact. But no one even noticed Neil Young's exodus. That's the thing. And the only one who ended up suffering any actual long-term consequence was Neil Young. His downloads cratered, sales dropped. I mean, there was Amazon streaming and there was Apple Music that still had his stuff. But when you take yourself away from Spotify, which is this huge platform, his sales dropped, his name recognition plummeted, and it was already on the downfall anyway. And what about Rogan? Spotify just inked the dude to a new $250 million deal to stay on their platform. So how does Neil Young handle all of this? I mean, the ship is going down. The Titanic is sinking. And so Neil Young decides to come crawling back to Spotify. But this is not going to be the mea culpa that he gave to Leonard Skinner and the good people of Alabama. This time, Young wants everyone to know, I'm anything but repentant. Let me just read to you the quote of Neil Young. This is a grumpy old man, is what this is. My decision comes as music services Apple and Amazon have started serving the same disinformation podcast features I opposed at Spotify. He's obviously referring to Joe Rogan, which means Apple and Amazon are also sharing Joe Rogan material. I cannot just leave Apple and Amazon like I did with Spotify because all my music would have very little streaming outlet to music lovers at all. Right, it's for all of you. That's why he doesn't want to deprive you and me of his music. So he doesn't have any choice. So he says, I have returned to Spotify in sincere hopes that Spotify's sound quality will improve and people will be able to hear and feel all the music as we made it. I mean, I guess you got to try to save face. I guess that's probably what a publicist helps put together. But my goodness, you got that, Spotify? You are darn lucky that Apple and Amazon screwed up too. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so fortunate. And on top of that, you should be thanking God that Neil is willing to grace your outlet with his music despite the poor sound quality that you offer. I'll tell you what, this man does not struggle when it comes to self-importance. My take on all of this, pretty simple, actually. Personally, see if you pick up what I'm laying down here. Personally, I hope Neil Young will remember that a streaming man don't need him around anyhow. That's what I got to say about that. Hey, real quickly, before we call it quits here on the first half of the MemoPod, somebody sent it in and asked me what I thought of, sent me an email, and this was a free subscriber that sent the email, and that's why I'm responding here on the free side of this, but asked me what I thought about former Vice President Mike Pence saying that he could not support Donald Trump in his bid for election this time around. Did I think it was sour grapes? Did I think it was a principled stand and all of that? Here's the thing. I actually know Mike Pence a little bit more than I know other politicians. We aren't friends. I'm not suggesting that he and I got together. I'm not suggesting he would even know my name. I do have some stuff that he signed. I introduced him at a couple events. So I mean, he was from Indiana, and so back when I was doing the radio show and stuff, I was doing speeches for various congressional candidates and helping out at those, and then he would come and speak. So we rubbed elbows a few times. I'm not saying that to impress anybody, okay? I do believe that Mike Pence is not doing this out of sour grapes. I don't think that that's what it is. I think that Mike Pence is making a principled stand. He's saying, look, Donald Trump, and the way he puts it, Trump has turned against some of the things that they did in the first term. And he says that he's immensely proud of what they accomplished in the first term. But that Donald Trump has turned on pro-lifers, blaming them for midterm losses, that he's softened on issues relative to transgenderism, so on and so forth, which is not inaccurate. Trump has done those things. And so, do I think that it's a principled stand? Yeah, I do. I will also say, and this is just my personal take, I don't think it's going to impress many people, because I think the people who would be impressed would be those that didn't vote for Donald Trump the first time. Principled conservatives that said, look, I have these standards. That's something else we're going to have to get fixed. Did you hear that background sound? That's one of the reasons we're going to try to put the cone of silence on this, so you don't hear the weird sounds in my garage. You hear that in the background? Yeah, something's happening. Anyway, okay, so the people that Mike Pence's move right now would appeal to, see if I can say this right, are those who believe that a principled conservative is in the right to not support Donald Trump. The problem is those principled conservatives who feel that way did not vote for Trump the first time around because of their principled conservatism. And Mike Pence joined that ticket. So the very people that he would be appealing to with this move are going to look and say, Mike, where were these principles the first time around? And of course, Pence would say back, well, Donald Trump was different then. I don't know that many folks are going to... I just don't know that many folks who are principled conservatives are going to buy that. I just don't. And I don't think they're going to be cool with the whole thing. So, do I think that it scores him any points? No. It'll get him interviews. And so if he's trying to be out there on the speaking tour, whatever, the speaking circuit, if he's wanting to get invited to face the nation and stuff like that, yeah, I think for a time doing something like this will work. But that's only going to ingratiate himself to leftists and not the people that I think he's trying to appeal to. So that's my take on the whole thing. I think that Mike Pence's political ship has sailed, and I think he knows that, and so I think that's what I think. That's it. In a nutshell, that's it. All right? Okay, so coming up in the second half, my take on Tucker. Some of the stuff that Tucker has been up to, some of the stuff that I'm sitting here scratching my head about Tucker being up to, and my history with Tucker. That's for our paid subscribers. I would love for all of you to join in on that, but in order to do that, you got to just take the risk. You know, you got to take the plunge. You got to just sink it, just go for it, man. You just go for it. And $10 a month. That's all it is. $10 a month, or you can do the $20 off if you do it all at once for the year. Just $100 for a year, and boom, you're golden. You get everything. The memo that comes out on Monday, the Bible teaching. We've got some stuff that's coming up soon. I'm telling you, soon. That will be discounted for you and all sorts of things like that. We're going to hit the ground running soon. I know I keep saying that, but you got to see, I've got a lot of irons in the fire, and getting this thing put together is big on the list, and it's just a lot. But anyway, so take the plunge, and then you can join in the conversation on Tucker and all that stuff that comes up next. If you're a free subscriber, you're staying that way, great, glad to have you. We'll see you next week for a pre-recorded one. Okay, pre-recorded. So don't hold it against me if I miss something. And for those of you who are paid subscribers, I'll see you right after this.
The Memo with Peter Heck.
Please patronize and thank all the sponsors of the Heck podcast, including McGonigal's Buick GMC, Terrell's Auto Service, Norris Insurance, Stevens Machine, Creative Financial Center, Indiana Right to Life, Tri-Green Tractor, the Indiana Family Institute, Hartman Family Farms, Liberty Financial Group, the Wyman Group, and J. Watson Creations.